Hi, I'm John Ray, and welcome to the Thriving Podcast. I'm your host and intuitive coach, dedicated to amplifying your intuition, transforming your mind, and igniting your inner magic to create a life you're obsessed with. 2 years ago, I was burnt out as fuck in a toxic relationship and a successful tech career that I just wasn't happy in anymore. I left it all behind with no plan, and now I'm running my own business, immersed in purpose and passion, happily married to my soulmate, and living out my dreams every single day. And if you're badass enough to be listening to this podcast, then you're already on the fast track to doing the same, babe. On this podcast, we'll dive into all things life, business, heart, mind, body, and soul, empowering you to up-level your life and embody your happiest, healthiest, and hottest self. It's time to make idealistic your new realistic, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to thrive. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy Thriving Thursday. I missed you last week. I missed you because I put out the meditation / guided somatic practice, whatever you want to call it, and I didn't get to talk to you, which obviously I know that we're not really talking, but I feel a difference. I know I've talked about this before, but I feel like, oh my God, how did I not update you on my life for a week? How are you going to survive? You don't know what's going on. I consider doing another just mini little holiday break update for this week since it's the day after Christmas, but I don't know. It didn't feel that exciting, and I really wanted to do some kind of episode for you before the new year, before New Year's Eve, preferably. Not that the timing really matters. Obviously, you can work on your goals at any time around the new year, before the new year, after the new year, or at any time during the year. But even though it's not the actual, I don't know, this New Year's made up, right? This is the one Caesar made up, and the real one. Well, there's I think in paganism, Samhain, the Samhain portal, Halloween is actually considered the New Year, and the astrological New Year is in March, right? Around the spring equinox. I don't know. Somebody can enlighten me on the history of New Year and all the times that there are New Year throughout the year. Honestly, though, it's kind of funny how it works that way. I like to kind of just celebrate all the equinoxes, all the changes of the seasons, and look at, just each phase and be adaptable. I revisit my goals all the time. I mean, I revisit my goals on a very frequent basis. I am weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, but it's kind of funny how Halloween is kind of marking the start of the fourth quarter, about, I think, timely wise. And spring equinox is kind of marking the start of the second quarter. And then this new year is kind of marking the start of the first quarter. So what happens in the summer? It's interesting that all the different New Years mark a new quarter of the year. Is that just a coincidence? Anyway, all that to say, even though I know this technically whatever is not maybe this New Year's made up, I know that we all still treat it as an opportunity for new beginnings, because who doesn't love an opportunity to feel like you're getting a fresh start and to revisit your goals and your dreams and everything like that, and to turn over new leaves and really get motivated to make positive change in your life. And especially I feel like maybe it is just because I've grown up with this feeling around this time, but I feel like because of how the holidays are set up at this time of year, we have Christmas and all of the stuff going on, and then we have the little week break between Christmas and New Year's where you kind of feel like time isn't real. And then I feel like the timing sets you up well. It's the perfect kind of conditions for a fresh start. Okay, after New Year's, I'm really getting my shit together, I don't know. That's always how I felt. And so I like to embrace the opportunity regardless. I think a big problem that people have with it is because it is the middle of winter, and obviously winter, again, like I said, I love to live seasonally and I've been trying more and more to live more in sync with the seasons and just with nature in general. Obviously with my body, it's all kind of the same thing, but I think this has become more popular, especially over the past couple of years, with obviously spreading awareness through social media and whatnot, of it's okay to feel less motivated and less active and less in a yang energy in the winter, because it's, that's not really the vibe of the season. It's more of the inward hibernation season. Of course, if you menstruate and you cycle sync or you are in tune, you pay attention to your cycle and you're familiar with the seasons of your cycle, it's a very similar thing. Of your inner winters, when you're menstruating, what time to go inward, introspect, to rest, to lay low, to not really do a lot. And so I think there's a misconception where people are like, oh, I'm told that it's the new year and I should be all like active and whatnot, but really I shouldn't be. And I don't have to have energy and be active until spring. And it's like, yes and no. I think it's completely fine, and I encourage it to set goals for the new year. We can still set goals all year long, right? There's no reason to delay and put off your growth and your manifesting and everything, and you just like improving your life in any way. But it's like, let's just be aware of our energy, not just at this time, but like on a day-to-day basis, And let's also be realistic. I'm doing air quotes because you guys know how I feel about that word, but this is actually an instance where the word applies, right? Like, let's just not be extreme, right? Because extremism is where things become unsustainable and ineffective. Ineffective? Is ineffective a word? Miseffective? No, definitely not that. Ineffective. Yeah, I think ineffective is a word. Why does it sound so weird to me? Ineffective. Disaffect? No. Why does that sound so weird? Yeah, ineffective. It's definitely a word, ineffective. I don't know why that's like tripping me up. Anyway, I feel like this is a very long-winded intro and explanation for me to say in this episode. I'm going to walk you through how to basically set goals like a badass and accomplish goals like a badass, and really my process basically to approaching the new year and goal setting in general. I mean, at the new year and always, but this is how I approach my new year resolution / new year goal / new year intention setting. And I think I have a really good process, and I help a lot of people with this, and other people always really like my process. And like I was saying, I really wanted to give you an episode that will help you with this process before the new year, because I know a lot of you are at least thinking about it, and hopefully having this perspective and this process and seeing a look at how I do it and how I think about it and how I approach it will help you to really set kick-ass goals and slay in 2025 is basically my goal with this. I didn't really take notes or plan because I feel like I just want to flow and just describe my process to you. I did an IG Live workshop where I basically walked through this process actually last January. It was actually a fun fact. So this past January of 2024, I was sick for the entire month. Started off 2024 with a bang. But you know what? It's funny because I remember back then saying, I was like, well, it can only go up from here. This just must be really good for the plot. How crazy. It's like just setting up a really good story because I'm going to totally slay in 2024. And it's going to be like, oh my God, remember how I was literally sick for the whole first month and then I like thrived and everything was amazing, which actually happened. So that's cool. I did want to make an episode actually of like my 2024 goals compared to what I accomplished in 2024. I thought that would be really interesting just to take a look at and show you guys all the things that came true and how they did and what I manifested, maybe like a what I manifested in 2024, something like that. But I felt like this was more timely, important to put before New Year's, and I could do that next week maybe if you guys are interested. So anyway, so I was sick all of January, and it was because, so I got sick the first half. I don't know what it was. I don't think it was COVID. I don't really remember what happened. I think it was like just a mystery weird illness. Maybe it was the flu. I don't remember. I was sick for about 2 weeks. And then I did this IG Live because I was like on the turn, like I was on the up and up. I was like, okay. It was like at the end of 2 weeks. I was like, I'm pretty much better. I still am a little bit low energy, but like I'm good. I have a little bit of congestion, but it's fine. So I did the IG Live, and literally it was like by the end of that IG Live, I had so much pain in my face, and it ended up, I had a sinus infection. Like my cold or whatever I had evolved or devolved, I should say, into a sinus infection, progressed into a sinus infection, whatever, or regressed. I don't know. And I swear it was like it happened on the live. Like, I think I don't know if I like I don't know how it works, like if that's even possible, but I felt like I aggravated it so much by talking like so emphatically on the live for like an hour that by the end of the live, I was in so much pain, and then I had a sinus infection for 2 more weeks, and that's why I ended up being sick the whole month. So that's like completely random and irrelevant, but it was just a funny memory that I had because I remember it was specifically this live that I did on Higher Self Habits. It's still on my page. You could go back and watch it. I think this will probably be better though, this episode than that was, because that was the first time I had tried to really explain my process. And I think it was more on habits specifically and like how to set good habits, not as much on like your actual goal setting process. But anyway, yeah, I just had that memory I wanted to share. So let's stop wasting your time. I'm just going to explain the process and I'll kind of throw some tips in along the way and whatever. We'll just see how it goes. It's going to be really valuable. I do recommend taking notes. And also, if you want, you could totally like get your notebook out and do this process along with the episode. Do your goal setting while you listen. You could like pause and do things as I say them, whatever you want to do, or just listen, think about it, and do it later. So the first thing I do want to recommend when it comes to your New Year goal setting / intention setting / resolution, whatever, I'm going to just, I guess, use the words interchangeably. I think technically, so a goal, and I'm going to kind of get into this in the process, but the way I look at it is a goal is an outcome you would like to accomplish or achieve, right? Like an external event or outcome or experience, a tangible thing, the more kind of masculine focus result, right? A result. A resolution is just something you're resolving to do. So, it's an input, it's an action, it's a something you change internally. It's something you change in the way that you show up, basically, right? So a resolution and a goal are different. And then there's an intention, which is similar to a resolution because that is also about the way you show up. Like that's more of an input than an output. And the way I look at it is kind of like you have your goals and your intentions, and then a resolution is just you basically stating, like affirming, I am resolving to be this way, to do this. And so your resolutions could also be actions that are behind the goals, inputs that will support the goals, that will support the outcomes. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but just to give you a little clarity on like what I mean when I say those words and what the difference between them is, at least the way I look at it, but I think those are like the actual definitions. So anyway, the first thing I'd recommend is do your process with somebody. Also, maybe you don't, I should like disclaim as well. This is like my New Year goal setting, but like this is like Slay 2025, redefine your life for the year, dream your life, envision your life for the year, your 2025 vision. This is my process for how do I want my like it's a full, like it's thorough. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, the other day I was getting coffee with my friend and I was about to leave and I was like, oh, by the way, what are your New Year's resolutions? And she was like, oh, like thanks for reminding me, I still have to think of one. And she's like, what's yours? And I was like, oh, I still have to sit down and do it all. And she was like, do it all? Do all what? Are you making a PowerPoint presentation? And it was just a hilarious moment because it was just so classic us. Like, of course, like she was like, what do you mean do it all? Like you just pick a resolution. And I was like, oh yeah, that is how a lot of people look at it. But for me, it's like a whole thing. I have categories, sections of I take it seriously, obviously, because like that's me. So anyway, just a disclaimer in case you're like, what are you talking about? Like before you sit down to start your process. But I'm assuming a lot of you listening to this podcast are the same way. I don't think I'm weird with that, especially like for us in this world, in the thriving community, in the thriving world. So what we're all about is like thriving in the new year. So yeah, my first tip is do it with someone else. Like have, 2025 vision session. Haha, I know that's what my sessions were called, but I don't mean it that way. Or no, my calendar's actually closed. No, I think it's closed. There might be like one spot left next week because I left it open till next week. And I think there was like one spot left. So I don't know, maybe you could still book one. That is why I do the sessions, right? Because it is so much more powerful to do your planning for the new year and like just even to dream and come up with your goals and what you want with other people. Because number one, it's fun. It's just fun to not do it alone. And number two, it's expansive, right? Every year, Sindri and I highly recommend doing with your partner if you have a partner. We always do our goals together and we also do couple goals, which I think is a really good thing to do. But it's just nice because it brings us closer together and it's expansive because we can like give feedback to each other. One of us might be like, well, I think I kind of want to like maybe do something like this, but it's not fully fleshed out. And then it's just helpful to be able to like bounce ideas off each other. I also did like a little manifesting 2025 vision goal setting ritual thing with two of my best friends, well, my sister and one of our best friends. You've probably seen it. It's like the ritual was like going around on TikTok about like the winter solstice. It was like the 12 days of Christmas type thing, or not 12 days of Christmas, but like 12 nights of Christmas or whatever. And you basically write out like 13 manifestations, and then you cut them all up, and then you burn one a night leading up to New Year's, and then you'll have burned 12 and you'll have one left. And the idea is like the 12 you burned, okay, the universe is taking care of those, and then when you open, that's your job. And so it's this cool thing. I've never done it before, but I'm doing it this year. It's kind of this cool thing, at least how I interpret it, of like, okay, trusting the process. Like now the universe has basically kind of like said, okay, if you focus on this one, that is what will help lead to all the other things, you know, like this is your job, and then let me handle the rest. So it's kind of cool how it works. I actually am like, so, okay, my sister was like, I don't want to wait until the end of the year. I just want to pick it up now. And I was like, you know what? Fine. I think it's all about the intention anyway. You know, just burn them all at once and then leave the one and read it. And then her and my other friend were traveling, so they just wanted it over with. And I was going to do it all the nights, but low key. Okay. So this year I've actually started, this is so rambly today. This year, but it's fun. It's fun. I'm not going to apologize because I know this is what you guys love. Like this is why you love listening to the podcast, because you love listening to me talk. I know when I'm listening to podcasts, like I actually love the parts where they just completely derail. So I hope that you do too. But anyway, I started doing actually like burning papers and things for rituals this year, because I was just like, I always see people talk about burning and like it's very symbolic, and I actually want to do it in like my rituals. And I started doing it, and like low-key I hate it, and I don't think I'm going to continue doing that like out for 2025 because it actually smells so bad. And I feel like it's probably not healthy. Like the fumes from the paper, like the smoke, I hate it. And yeah, I actually don't enjoy it. The ash, I always end up somehow getting the ash all over. And it's like, it's kind of like an Instagram versus reality thing. Where it's like, unless you have the ability to like go outside and do it in a fire pit, I don't know, I'm not burning anymore. So anyway, I burned like the first five, I think. And then I was like, okay, low key, I hate this like burning. I don't want to deal with the smoke anymore. I kind of want to just get it all over with and burn the rest in one. So I did. And I really think it's more about the intention. And I trust the process. And I said, universe, okay, this is how we're doing it, and it's still going to work out the right way. So I already got mine. Should I share? Should I keep it a secret? I'll share. So the one that I got that was my responsibility was, I will read it, consistent health and fitness routine. Which is so funny. It sounds kind of basic, but I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, because I've completely fallen off my fitness routine, really. Like kind of like I'm still pretty good. I mean, obviously I'm obsessed with health, but like just my general, like more of my like physical, like I move a lot, you know, I dance obviously, and I just do a lot in my body, and I walk a lot, but I fell off my actual like fitness, like dedicated fitness. And I would say my diet is still pretty good, but it's gotten a little looser, that like I just used to be more on it. You know what I mean? And so I'm still far and above probably the average person with this, but I really wanted to get back to it because also I feel like it's something that I've always been really passionate about. And I think what happened is kind of like when I started to really go all in on my mental health and emotional health and spiritual health, it just kind of almost diverted my energy. Which is kind of weird to say because obviously your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, like they're all intertwined. It's not like, oh, I'm focusing on my emotional health, and so therefore I'm not focusing on my physical health. But I think then that led into me starting my business. And then I was like just always doing this like inner work. And it almost felt like, okay, I'm doing all of this work, like all of this inner work and working on my business. Like I could take a break. Like I don't have to go work out, which is such a dumb mindset. I almost feel like I can't even believe I fell into that. There's no time to work out, or I don't have energy to you know what I mean? I've always been very like, you can make time to work out. Like that shouldn't be like a negotiable thing. Like you should move your body daily. But I think that's what it was, because I was still very active and I was still moving my body daily. So again, it's not like I fell off a ton, but I just became less intentional with it, as I guess what I'm saying. So I think I kind of like made excuses in my head where I was like, but I'm still moving a lot, and I still dance, and I still teach, and I still do this and that, but I wasn't intentional. Like I wasn't like strength training anymore. I was just like I was active. You know what I mean? So there was a difference to me, and I definitely know that I function better when I have a consistent workout routine. I feel more motivated. I feel more confident when I do. And so I know it brings a lot of good things to my life. And that's something that I've been really wanting to reprioritize. And I also just feel better about my body. I feel I have better energy levels. Obviously, there are no downsides to working out. There are no downsides to having a consistent workout routine. So that is the one I pulled. And I find it funny because I can totally see how this one specifically would ripple out to the other things that I wrote down. You know what I mean? I can totally see it. And and the ones that my sister and my friend pulled too, I can totally see how theirs would ripple out to the other ones they wrote down. I really do recommend doing it because I think it's just really fun practice and kind of trusting the universe. And it's like you're probably going to pull the one that you either had a feeling you were going to pull or like kind of didn't want to pull or kind of did want, you know what I mean? I don't know. It feels like a little wink. So anyway, I'm giving you like little side tangents about my process, but that's relevant, right? Like a peek into my mindset with everything. But I brought that up because I also did that ritual with my friend and my sister. And I thought it was really helpful for us to have each other to like bounce ideas off of. And we would kind of have like, okay, I know I want something kind of related to this, but I'm not sure exactly kind of like what I want or what I wanted. And we would just kind of prompt each other, ask questions. I think it happened at least once for all of us to where like we didn't even consider something or we already were naturally like downplaying our goal, because this is what happens. I just had a vision call earlier today, and we were talking about how a lot of the time we will think we don't know something, or we just like something won't even come to our mind because we don't even realize how many fears and limits we have that are immediately blocking it and rejecting it and suppressing it. I know I've talked about this a ton on here, I'm sure. And so it's really important and helpful to have other people that can help to expand your perspective. You might say, okay, my goal is to, not be miserable at my job. And then you could have your friend or whoever you're with, your partner or coach, right? To be like, okay, I think we can dream a little bigger, to make sure you're kind of not settling with your goals, right? Like, how about instead of not be miserable, we could say, love my job, right? Like, your goal is not to not be miserable. Your goal truly is to love my job, but you're kind of holding yourself back either because you don't feel like that's realistic, or maybe you don't like deep down kind of think that you deserve to love your job or whatever it is. And so I think it's really helpful to have people around to just, again, bounce ideas off of, help to expand your perspective and to lift you, expand your goals and hold you higher. And it's also just fun, like I said. So that's the first thing I really recommend. Okay, second thing that I really recommend, here I'm like, I don't have like tips or numbers, and here I am like numbering things, is, okay, I think the number one mistake that people make, I should say, with goal setting is they get overwhelmed, because they'll kind of just be like, okay, this is like everything I want and I'm going to get everything. And then they just stop there. They're like, okay, I want all these things. And they number one, don't think further beyond that. Like, don't break it down. Or they, number two, don't prioritize once they do kind of that like brain dump. Or at least I guess that's what I've done in the past. Or I guess on the flip side, like they only do like one thing, and it's like they ignore multiple big areas of their life, which I don't think it's bad to like have one. I think it would be better to have one goal you're really zoned in on than to set like, 20 goals and then like be super overwhelmed and not do anything. And we also want to have a clear vision of what we want for every area of our life, because if we don't define that, then that area is probably not going to grow a lot, right? Or like if we're growing in one area that we're really focused on, that area might fall to the wayside. Perfect case in point. Okay, I knew it was relevant that story came through about my fitness, right? Is like I hadn't defined, fitness goals alongside my business goals. And so because my business was like kind of my sole focus and like my inner growth was my sole focus, I didn't have anything to like help carry my fitness as a priority, why did I say that so weird? As a priority alongside my other goals, right? So that's kind of a perfect example of what I mean, of why I like to do this, where we set goals and visions in every area of life. So the way I like to do it is I basically divide into 4 categories, I think it is. So 1 is business or career work. 2 is health and wellness. 3 is personal/play. So that's kind of just like your stuff for you, or like personal habits or passions, things you do for fun, stuff like that. And then 4 is relationships. And so that's friendships, that could be family relationships, that could be romantic relationships, relationship with stranger, anything relating to human connection. Yeah, and then health and wellness is the only one I didn't elaborate on, but I think that one's pretty obvious. So that would include mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health. Yeah, there is a little bit of overlap with like personal play and health wellness, but use your intuitive discernment, like use your common sense. So anyway, I make those one, two, three, four categories. And then within each category, I basically brain dump, okay, what is everything that I want in this category? I write out my dream scenario. I want to manifest. How do I want to feel with it? And if you're not already doing this, definitely write out the tangible and the intangible. So write out all of the tangible goals, the things you want to manifest, like I want to make $1 million. I want to have this job. I want to be booked out with clients. I want to have a book published. I want to start a podcast. I want to get 10,000 downloads. I'm trying to think of examples too, like if you're not an entrepreneur. I want to make this salary. I want this much of a raise. I want to lead a team. I want to increase my vacation time. I want to work remote, whatever it is. Okay, you get the idea. And then for the intangible, it would be, I want to love my job. I want to feel really confident on calls, or I want to stop obsessing over my store reviews. I want content to be really easy. I want to sell every day, or that's a tangible, sorry. I want selling every day to feel easy. I want to feel excited about work when I wake up in the morning. I want to be more authentic in my online presence, stuff like that. So things about just the way that you're showing up and the way that you're feeling in that area of your life. So you can just brain dump, but just like keep in mind, okay, am I writing about my intentions of how I want to show up? Or, another one like for me this year is I want to have better focus, right? So that's a way that I'm showing up. So that's more of like an intention. So in your brain dump for each section, you want to think about, and if it helps you, you can also like write out like manifestation / like tangible goals, outcomes, and you can list those. Then you can write, intangible, like how do I want to feel? And then you can write intentions of like, how do I want to show up? Whatever resonates best with you. But those are kind of like the 3 areas, the 3 perspectives, the 3 lenses you want to look through within each area. So you do that for every area. So I just did all work examples. I won't give examples for all of this for every category, but you get the idea. You do that for all 4 areas and you just brain dump. If I could wave a magic wand and everything was perfect with this, then like, what would it look like? And like at the end of the year, if I were to look back, okay, let's not say perfect because I know I have a lot of perfectionists. We're breaking out of perfectionism, but let's just say this, like at the end of the year, if this all came true by the end of 2025, like I would be so happy. Like this would be my dream come true. If I was here by the end of 2025, right? Like what do you want this area of life to look like by the end of the year? Brain dump all of that. Meditation or visualization related to this is super helpful as well. Maybe I should have put one out for you guys. But you know what? No, I shouldn't have because I offered the calls where that's literally what we did. Like we did the 2025 embodied visualization where we literally activated the timeline and the new frequency of the timeline. And honestly, they were epic and you could have booked it for free. So if you didn't, I don't feel bad that I didn't put it on the podcast. That I didn't put out something for you on the podcast like that because you could have booked a call and it was epic. So anyway, that's what you're going to do. And then you're going to go through and identify your priorities. So like your top priorities in each area, because again, we don't want to like be overwhelmed. And actually what I like to do is I just prioritize them like in order. So it's not that you have to like forget about any goals. And again, you can like use your own intuitive discernment and common sense with this. If you are like, okay, this is something I would like ultimately, but within the realm of this year, it's just not my focus. It's honestly not a priority. Be honest if it's like, I would like this eventually, but it's not a priority to me right now. And be really honest about what are the priorities for me this year. Because normally when you do that alone, if you really tune into your body with it. And so when you do this, like really ask, feel in your body, is this a yes or a no? Is this a priority this year? You can even ask yourself, is this a priority to me in 2025? And feel the yes or no in your body. If you don't know how to feel the yes or no in your body, I don't know if we have time to go into that all right now, but what I will say is normally the yes feels expansive. It feels like you're being pulled forward. So you might feel like more openness. Normally for me and for most people, I find it comes through your chest or your stomach, like your gut. It'll either feel just like a yes in your gut if you get gut feelings, or in your, like for me, I often feel just like an openness and I feel pulled forward, like from my chest. You might feel really excited about it. You might feel kind of like lit up. You can also muscle test, which is kind of like where you see if your body leans forward or back. Just look up how to do that. I'm not going to explain it here. And then if it's a no, it'll normally kind of just feel like you're pulled down or you're pulled back. Again, for me, like my chest kind of starts to close. It gets tighter. My stomach, I might feel like a sinking, or it's just like a gut no, like it's really like a gut check. I know you all are like everyone listening to this is fairly, in tune with your body and your intuition. So just trust it and try to really be honest with yourself. It's kind of like, if you're like shopping and you're like, okay, do I really need this? Do I really want this? Or do I just kind of feel like I want it or I want to buy it, but it's not really a full body yes. Right. And it's like, oh, but I really want to buy it. So I don't want to admit that it's not a full body yes, but it's really not a full body yes. Right. So really try to tune in for that full body yes. So I just described kind of like a part of the full body yes. Really like the full body is, does it sound good to my head? Does it sound good to my heart? Does it sound good to my soul? Like, is it a yes? Not does it sound good, but is it a yes in my head and my heart and my soul? In other contexts, it's a little bit different, but like for this purpose, that's kind of what you're asking, right? So don't overthink it. Again, when you're asking yes, no, and you're trying to use your intuition, don't overthink it. I want you to just go through and be like, is this a priority? Yes or no? Try to be honest. This is why it also is helpful to have people around you that can help hold you accountable. Or if you're like, I don't really know if it's a priority, I feel like it is, they can kind of help talk you through questions, hopefully, to discern. So you're going to go through and be like, okay, is this a priority in 2025 or is it not? Knock off anything that's not a priority. You could save the list for later, or just trust that if it's important, it'll come back when it's meant to, right? And then with whatever you have left, you're going to prioritize that in order and then basically identify like your top priorities, right? And so I recommend, again, be honest with yourself of what you like to have, what you can handle, but like really not having more than 3 top priorities. And I think it's still really good to do this whole process and know the other goals, have them in the back of your mind, and then if you like if you manifest all your top 3 goals, then you like know those are happening, or maybe you start to just make moves in the background, or it's just like, you brought it kind of into the field, right? Like it's there, but you want to really just focus and hone in on the top 3 so that, again, I've talked about this before. If you listen to episode 11, if you haven't, like honestly, it's such a good episode. You should go back and listen to it. It's on scheduling, time management, prioritization, all this stuff. But if you have more than 3, then your little goal energy armies are going to be like way too spread out, and like you won't be as successful and effective within the goals that you really are your priority. So that's what you're going to do in terms of prioritization. And then you're going to end up with 3 top goals or outcomes and 3 top intentions and 3 top intangible goals. And there may be some overlap. There probably will be. It's okay if you don't have like 3 of each, or you know what I mean? Again, this is a general process, so feel free to make it your own as much as you want to, but you're going to have basically 3 top things to focus. It's likely that there will be some blend or overlap among things, or they will relate or go together really well. For example, like in health and wellness, you might have a goal to lose 10 pounds, and then you might have also had an intention or an intangible goal of being more mindful of what you're eating, right? Or having a better relationship with food. And so there would be a lot of overlap there. They're very similar, which is good because the next step of what we're doing is actually breaking down the outcomes into basically intentions and inputs. This is another one of the biggest mistakes that people make with setting goals is they set the goal, right? So they'll be like, I want to get 1,000 podcast downloads, right? That was my podcast download goal this year, which we hit. We are over 1,000 now. Whoop, whoop. And thank you all, by the way. Every single one of you was a part of making that goal happen. And so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I freaking love you guys. And I cannot wait for all of the growth we're going to have in 2025 and all the exciting things for the podcast. I cannot wait. But that was like a goal, right? That was a tangible outcome. And so the biggest mistake people make is they will say, okay, my goal is I want to get 1,000 podcast downloads, or I want to make $1 million, right? But then they don't break it down to the inputs and daily actions that they need to take to make it happen. And so then it's like, okay, great, we have this goal, but how are we making it happen? There is a disconnect, right? That's why I tell you to focus so much on the inputs and the intentions and how you want to feel with these things too. The how you want to feel is especially important from a manifestation perspective because obviously embodying the feeling is what makes you feel that way. Like everything, all the goals we want are ultimately because we want to feel a certain way. I've talked about this before in my manifestation episodes. You can go back and listen to those, but that is like the hack. That's the cheat code is like just embody the feeling, find a way to embody the feeling, and then you actually like won't care as much about manifesting the thing. But in terms of intentions and inputs and actions, right? If we don't break the outcome down to, okay, what actions and inputs am I taking to make it happen? It's never going to happen. We have to connect it back to the way we are showing up. And we also have to remember. So the reason that I even say to write out the tangible goals is so you have basically a framework, like a context for how to determine the actions you want to take and the way you want to show up. And basically, essentially, the habits you want to change, right? It's all about habits at the end of the day. You guys know Atomic Habits is my Bible. That's why I did the Higher Self Habits workshop last year, because it all does come down to habits. That's Atomic Habits is about 1% every day, right? The little actions that you take. So we come up with the big picture. We come up with the big picture so that we can break it down to see the little picture, the steps right in front of us, right? And if you just have a goal, not only can you not then identify the actions that you want to take and need to take to make it happen, but it also kind of sets you up for disappointment because you're attached to something that's out of your control, right? So we basically define the tangible goals as a vision, as a set point to create context, but then our actual goals and resolutions are our focus. Our actual inputs are our focus. So if I made a goal, which I did, to get 1,000 podcast downloads, that's just kind of a representation of the way I wanted to show up for my podcast and what I wanted to do with my podcast this year, right? So it was basically okay, this number's a little bit stretchy, right? It's higher than I would expect my downloads to average out to. So I know that I'm going to have to put in a little more effort into the podcast. I'm going to have to invest some more energy and do something special for it, or put some more energy into the marketing to make sure we hit that, which I did. Another input that I would determine from that is okay, I want to reach 1,000 downloads. I have to post an episode every week and be consistent, right? That was another thing I did. Those were inputs I'm going to post every week consistently. I am going to post about the episodes on my stories every week. And then I am going to make a weekly trailer for these episodes. Next year, it's going to be I am going to have this many guests or whatever it is. So I had the goal that was the context for me to then determine, okay, and these are the inputs that I'm going to take to ensure this goal happens. And it's also so important to do that because then even if I didn't hit 1,000, I wouldn't feel bad about it. It's encouraging because it's a way to measure, right? It's a measure. Measures are helpful to keep us on track and help us see how we're progressing. So I could see, okay, we're about on track to hit this many, or, oh, it's looking a little low. I'm going to have to do something extra to pump it up. Maybe I share it a little bit more that week. I share about that week's episode a little bit more that week to pump up or I share an old episode, or I tell people to share it out. If I was really far away from my goal, maybe I would have done a giveaway or something to bump it up. You know what I mean? Or I see, okay, I'm on track, I'm good, I'm gonna keep going with it. If I had come up short and I knew that I had been doing everything I set out to do, that I knew was the things that I knew were the actions that were in my control to get the result I wanted, I wouldn't have felt bad if we didn't hit 1,000 by the end of the year, because I would be proud of the way I showed up and I would know that I took care of everything that was in my control. That was my responsibility, So that's kind of the approach that we're taking with all of these goals, is set the goal and then bring it inward so that you will be proud of yourself and you don't have to be disappointed if you didn't hit a goal, because we really don't have a way to, that's not in our control, So I know one that comes up a lot in business is money, right? Yes, set a goal of having a 6-figure year, right? Having your first 100K year or having your first 10K month. Great, set that goal. And then you want to, first of all, something I didn't mention is with all of these, and this you can kind of do in the priority section, but also, actually, I should add this as another step, but do this whenever, but make sure you do this, okay? This is actually very important. Probably would make the most sense to do it along with and or after the priority step, but it's kind of the filtering process. The prioritization is kind of the filtering. So do it whenever, but you should definitely do this but it's also kind of a part of breaking into the inputs, which is why I just thought of it now. Anyway, is what is the why behind the goal? What is the why behind the goal? And that's also why I have you do the intentions and the feelings at the same time, because it kind of helps you look at the goal holistically and to make sure that you're not just setting a goal because you think that's a good goal to set or you heard someone else talk about that goal, right? For every single goal or resolution, intention, whatever it is that you write down, I want you to really ask yourself, why do I want this? I can't believe I forgot. That's actually kind of like the most important part. Really ask yourself and be honest. Why do I want this? How will my life change because of this? How will other people's lives change because of this? Where is this coming from? Is this coming from, and this is why the body check is helpful, but it's like, is this coming from a heart desire, a soul desire? Like, is it just because this is something I've always wanted to do, or I feel super strongly about this, or I really just feel called to this? How is this going to improve my life? Is this excitement? Does this light me up? Does this feel aligned? Or is it because like I think other people will think I'm cooler? I think other people will perceive me better. I think it'll impress other people. I think my life will look better. I think that this is what's impressive to other people. Is it because this is what my parents said I should want, right? Is it because this is what I saw people online say is cool? Like, really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, like, especially with those goals that you hear people talk about, right? If you're putting read more on your list, it's like, why do you want to read more? Like, actually ask. It's not even to make sure it's your goal, but actually to just get clear. Like, when you get clear on why you want it, you are naturally more motivated to go for it. And you're more likely to go about it in a way that will be effective because you actually know your intention behind it. So I could just say, I want to read more this year, and I'm not probably going to do it because it's not attached to any deeper meaning to me. But if I ask myself, well, why do I want to read more? Is it because I want to learn more? Okay, well, what do I want to learn more about? Oh, actually, I really want to learn more about this. And now, like, not only do I feel more connected to the goal, but now I know what kind of books I actually want to pick out that I'll be interested in reading, right? Instead of maybe if I wanted to read to learn more and I went and got a fiction book, I'm not going to read it because that wasn't actually why I wanted to read more. Or is it like I want to read more because I want to spend more time being mindful, or just because I want to spend more time not on screens? And then you could ask yourself, okay, like, now that I know that's my real motivation, is that I want to spend less time on screens, like, is reading really what I want to do? Because maybe you're like not into reading. So then like you want to spend more time off screen. So you say read more because it's the first thing that comes to your mind and everyone talks about you should read more. But then you're like, actually, wait, I don't think I like reading. And then now that you know your intention is actually just to spend more time off screens, you could think of what is another thing I would actually enjoy doing that would accomplish the same purpose that is actually aligned for me. Right? This is like the same stuff I do with my clients with business. Like, this is literally like the process we do of like, okay, you think that you need to be posting these 20-page carousels because that's what other people do, but really you just want to connect with your audience. You want to build authority. That's what the purpose of those is. So what's another way you can do that accomplishes the same purpose that feels more aligned to you? That's what we're doing. So like then maybe you're like, oh, actually, I like doing things with my hands. Maybe I want to learn a new craft, right? Or learn how to crochet. I don't actually want to read, and it accomplishes the same goal. So this is a really important step. Get honest with yourself and inquire. Get curious. Ask yourself with everything, why do I want it? What's my intention behind this goal? Like, where is it coming from? And what's the deeper meaning and deeper motivation? What is the why behind it? Because if you don't have that, even with like a big one, like I want to lose weight, right? If you want to lose weight or I want to work out more, like really ask yourself, why do I want that? Why do I want it? Especially with losing weight, a lot of people, it's like because I want other people to find me more attractive, right? And then when you dig into it, it's like, oh, like actually, that's not actually going to motivate me enough. It has to be for me, right? And then you can really connect it to maybe because I deserve to work out more. Like my body deserves to be taken care of. Or I just realize that it's really not about the weight as much as I want to feel good about my body, or I want to feel good in my body, right? And then you can break it down further from there. And so then again, like you could have a context goal or like a representative goal that's a measure, and you can kind of change the context and figure out, what do I really want? Like, what's at the core here? And make the goals so much more meaningful to you. So that's a very important step. I think I gave enough examples with that, so I'll move on because this episode is going to be so long. Oh, well, the last thing I'll finish up because I started on the money, right? So if you say like, I want to make a 10K month, like where is that coming from? Is that just an arbitrary number you pulled because you think that's like a representation of success because everyone and their mother online in the online coaching space, at least specifically, talks about the 10K month? And it's like, wait a minute, where's 10K? What do I care? Like, why is it 10K specifically? Have I actually mapped out like, okay, well, I know that I want enough money for this, this, and this. Where are your money goals coming from? I want enough money to cover my expenses, do my business. I want enough money to create this much of a savings fund, right? This is another thing. A lot of people will be like, better with money or save money. And it's like, no. We cannot just say save money. This is another thing, actually. I was going to get into this. That's what I said. It's going to be like random because I'm going to explain the process and think of things as I go. Another thing, this is another part of the filtering process, I should say. So part 1 of filtering is prioritization and like gut checking. Part 2 of that is connecting back to your why and the deeper motivation behind the goals and the intentions behind the goals and making sure they're aligned. And then part 3 is making sure they're specific, right? Oh, and also another one is making them affirmative. Okay, so I'll give you examples of what I mean by this. Making them specific, like I said, is instead of save money, how much money do you want to save? And again, why do you want to save it, right? Do you want to have an emergency fund that is enough to cover your monthly expenses for 3 months, right? Do you want to have a year's worth of savings? Do you want to have it like why, even if it's a number, like I want to have $5,000 saved or $50,000 saved, right? So why that amount? Because that is enough to cover this. That is enough for that. Literally get clear on it because you guys, you know this, your brain hates the unknown. Your brain is not gonna, like, the more familiarity you have with the goals, with why you're doing it, with all of that, the more that your brain is gonna actually be on your side. Because it's like, oh, you wanna save money? Well, why? You never told me why it's important, you know? Oh, you wanna save $50,000? Why? What's that for, right? You wanna make $50,000? Why? What's that for, you know? So whatever your money goals are, whether you wanna save, you wanna make more, it's like, why do you wanna make this amount? What is that money going to go towards? Like literally map out because I want to have enough for this. I want to be able to buy this thing. I want to do this. I want to have enough for that. Whatever it is, get clear on why you want the things you want, where the numbers are coming from, right? You might realize, okay, maybe 10K a month is actually not enough for what you want with your financial goals. Or maybe you're like, realistically, I would be so happy if I made like a 5K a month or an 8K a month. You know, I don't even know where 10K came from. That's so random. Really actually map out specifically like, what do I want and why? And like, where am I being arbitrary with these? So make sure the goals are specific as well. And then on the being affirmative, what I mean by that is like earlier I gave an example of stop obsessing over my stories, right? Yes, it's good to like illuminate what we want to stop doing. I think I talked about this in a video the other day. Not just saying no to things, but also saying yes to things and vice versa. Not just saying yes to things, but also saying no to things. But I think it's really powerful, especially with goal setting of when we say something we don't want to do anymore, something we don't want. Like earlier, I also said, be less miserable at my job. It's like, okay, but what is in place of that? What are we saying yes to? Because again, if we don't know what we're replacing it with, then it's not going to happen. Right? You can't manifest the absence of something. You manifest, like you create space and you manifest, you receive, right? You just choose to let go of something and then you receive something in place of it. So instead of stop being miserable at my job, it's like, how can we reframe that? Again, love my job. And again, like catch yourself when you're limiting yourself, because you might say, okay, instead of stop being miserable at my job, maybe you're like, I want my job to be bearable, right? Or have more peace at my job, right? And we're still kind of settling within the goal. And it's like, no, full out, like love your job, you know? Why are we like limiting? Go all out, you know? So just check yourself too, to be like, are these expansive goals? Are these expansive goals and intentions, or are they like mid? Am I settling, right? Am I like already limiting my blessings and the magic and the miracles that can happen in the way that I'm even affirming it or setting the goal in the first place, or the manifestation? I'm saying goal a lot and not saying as much manifestation in this episode. It's literally the same exact thing. Manifestation is also just kind of the process, the entire thing. So yeah, what's like a couple other examples of that? So instead of, stop obsessing over my stories, it's like, okay, well, like, what do we want in place of that, right? But really try to think, you know, like, okay, like, why do I want to stop obsessing over my stories? Because what would I gain in place? Or like, what would the flip side of that be? Like, what is driving me to do that now? And so what would it actually mean if I stopped? So it might be, okay, instead of stop obsessing over my stories, it's feel more confident that my stories are reaching the right people, right? Or detach from external validation in my business, which that's still kind of a focus on what we're subtracting. But it would be like, okay, we're detaching from external validation. So then it would be like, okay, source validation internally within my business, you know? So that's a way that you can like flip it and realize what is the affirming one, because you'll notice it just feels better to set the goal that way. And then it's more clear of like, okay, what am I focusing on including, on creating rather than just not, because it's like, well, if you're not, how are we going to not? How are we going to stop? You're not going to stop doing that. You're not going to stop checking the stories until you are sourcing validation internally, right? Until you've built up the confidence and the trust. And the same thing goes with like diet. It's like, stop eating junk food. Okay, great. And it's not bad to have that as a goal, but what are you replacing that with? First of all, you're probably going to have to look at like, what drives me to eat junk food? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I just really like the food? Is it because it's just around, right? Is it because you're bored? And then maybe you're actually changing the goal. Like you can still have that for awareness, but maybe you want to make the goal something about keeping yourself more occupied or trying new activities or increasing emotional fulfillment, right? If you're like, if you eat when you're sad, or eat more protein, right? Or eat more fruit. What calories are you eating to replace the junk food? Stuff like that. Maybe you want to stop impulse spending. And instead of stop impulse spending or stop spending mindlessly, what are you doing instead? Maybe it's implement budget tracking or be intentional with my purchases. Or maybe it's even I will wait a week before making a purchase over $500 or whatever it is, right? Whatever works for you. Again, it's going to be different for everyone. I'm trying to give as many examples as I can, but it is such a unique process. It really is so fun. I love doing it. I love helping people with it. This is not the process we did in the vision calls. In the vision calls, we just did coaching on one area and then we did the visualization. But I would let me know if in January I should offer calls where I help walk you through this process, because I find it so fun. It's like little puzzles to me. So that's part 4, is make sure you have the affirmative of all the goals. Even if you keep the negative on there for awareness, make sure you have the affirmative there. Okay, so that's the discernment process, the filtering process, prioritization and gut checking, connecting to your why and the motivation and intention behind it, making the goals specific and getting clear on the specifics of it and why you actually made that goal, and making the goals affirmative. Okay, back to what I was starting to get into is once we have those goals, we break it down to actions. So, example, if my goal was have my first 10K month, then I'm going to say, okay, what actions do I have to take to get my first 10K month? And this is going to be different for everybody, but for example, like I would say, okay, that means I am going to sell daily in my business. That means I'm going to have a goal maybe related to networking and collaboration. I'm going to do at least 2 collabs a month. Or I'm going to tell at least one new person about my business every day. Also, like I am going to commit to my inner work, my money mindset. If you have a money goal, maybe working on your relationship with money energetics is going to also be a goal. And then you'll keep going more specific. So I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. I will write out what are all the inputs and the actions that I know if I take these actions consistently, or I know that if I commit myself to these habits or these things, that will lead to my 10K month, right? Because again, of course, we can't put a timeline on how long it will take for us to get there because that is out of our control. But we can say, well, I know that if I do this, this, and this consistently, I will get there as fast as I possibly have access to. I will access the highest timeline where I manifest this as quickly as the universe allows, right? What are those actions for me? And there's so many it could be, right? And that's again where you have to tap into your intuition and act. What are the aligned actions? Because again, I could say, I want to hit my first 10K month. So I'm going to sell in my stories every day. I'm going to post content 3 times a week. And I'm going to meditate every day, right? Something like that. Just like for a basic example, I might say that just because that's what I saw other people say I should do. But maybe I don't even want to post content every day. Maybe I would rather grow my audience by offering free calls and doing podcast collabs, like going on podcasts with more active networking rather than just posting, or more like doing IG lives and connecting with my community one-on-one, getting in DMs rather than content, right? Not saying there's a right or wrong way, there's not. But what I'm saying is just be aware of, again, even when you get to this step of breaking it down to your actions, are they aligned or are they things that you think you should do or saw other people say you should do? Again, to use like the weight example, because it's just so common. Oh, this was a big one, especially in high schools. I'm going to eat 1,200 calories a day, right? And it's like, whoa, where'd you get that number from? It's kind of like it's like the 10K month of weight loss, right? It's like 1,200 calories. Like, no. Do you even know how many calories your body needs to be nourished. Do you know how many calories would be a sustainable deficit for you? So you have to get really real with the inputs too of like, okay, well, I have to figure out what it is for me. If you have just a fitness goal, right? Like I want a better body or I want to build strength. So you're like, I want to work out. And it's like, okay, how do you want to work out? What do you want to do? And like, maybe you're like, oh, I'm going to lift weights. Like, do you actually want to lift weights? You know, or do you just think that's what you have to do? Like, oh, well, people who work out and have good bodies go to the gym and lift weights. Well, maybe that's not your vibe. You know, maybe you want to work out at home. Maybe you want to do fitness videos. Maybe you want to do classes. Maybe you want to do a sport that's really active. Like when I started doing pole, I built so much strength and I wasn't at the gym lifting weights. I'm really trying to hammer in this point of like every step along the way, filter through the intuition and be like, okay, does this feel aligned? Is this what I want to do? Where did this come from? And do I feel confident that this is something that will lead me to this goal? So you're going to do that and you're going to basically, again, write out the actions you want to do and then you're going to prioritize the actions again. You're going to kind of do the same filtering process on the inputs that were related to the outputs. If you had a goal for the intangibles too. If you had said, I want to feel more confident in my business, okay, what actions are going to lead to me feeling more confident? Maybe that's I'm going to invest in a coach that's going to help me with that. Maybe it's I am going to hype myself up in the mirror every day or, you know, however many times, you know, nothing has to be every day. Want to caveat that too. So do this input breakdown, the input action breakdown for your intangible and your tangible goals. And then filter through, prioritize again. Okay, what are the top actions? Because again, we don't want to be like, all right, now I have a to-do list of 70 habits I have to do daily, right? Prioritize what are going to be the biggest needle movers, essentially. Like which actions are going to have the biggest effect and be the most effective and efficient at moving me closer to this goal that feel the most aligned. And hone in again to the top 3. Again, use your discernment, whatever feels good for each category, each goal. Then from there, we basically go to actually breaking those down into our daily habits. So depending on what you came up with here, like you might have some things that are daily, you might have some things that are weekly, some that are monthly, some that are bi-monthly, some that are like whatever it is. And from there is where, now this is where the SMART goals come in, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This process, we've actually been breaking our goals down into SMART goals. And so we've done the specific, we've done the measurable because we have our tangible and our intangible. We've done the achievable, we've done the prioritization, the gut check, we've done the relevance, we've done, again, the intuition filter. And now the time-based is kind of the last little piece. We're just kind of like rounding that out. So basically, like whatever your actions were, you're going to determine the time-based of like, how often am I taking this action? And then you're going to also be specific about the time of when specifically am I taking this action, right? So this is another big mistake people make with habits. Also, again, if you have not read Atomic Habits, you guys, I cannot recommend it enough. It is a life-changing book. Like literally, I don't call it my Bible lightly. It is everything. It is everything. And if you read one book this year, read Atomic Habits because it explains how to set habits and change your habits so well. But what I will say briefly on this is you want to be really specific about the actions you're committing to taking, which are habits. Actions you take daily are habits, or take consistently are habits you're building or habits you're breaking, right? You want to be specific about when, where, the context, circumstances, because again, your brain thrives off familiarity. So we want to, and ease, right? Your brain always wants the path of least resistance. So we want to make these actions feel as easy as possible. And we want to feel like we know exactly what we're doing as much as possible. If it's, I'm going to post content every day, for example, instead of saying, I'm going to post content every day, what are the parameters? How are you going to ensure you're posting content every day? Is it the first thing you're going to do when you sit down to work? Or is it, maybe you're a planner, I'm not, but maybe it's, I'm going to plan out my content for the week on Monday and this is the process I'm going to do. Get specific about how you know that you are going to basically break down that action even more into your implementable steps. If it's, I want to work out more, how many days a week are you working out? What kind of workouts are you doing? Where are you working out? Are you going to the gym? Are you going to classes? Are you going to just go for more walks outside? Are you going to work out at home? If you're working out at home, what workouts are you doing? Are you looking it up on YouTube? What are you looking up on YouTube? You know what I mean? Literally get specific. You want to know exactly what you're doing. What time are you working out? Am I going to a class? Am I working out As soon as I wake up, before I do anything, am I working out right after breakfast? Am I working out at 3 p.m.? Get specific with exactly when you're doing it. You want to know exactly where, when, what, like all the details. You don't want any question marks left in the air about the actions, the habits that you're trying to build. Okay? No question marks. So in Atomic Habits, and I talk about this with sales all the time too. I talked about this in my launch series. And I've talked about this in masterclasses. Like I talk about this all the time because sales, marketing, habits, it's all the same stuff. So I'm obsessed with all of it. It's all just how the human brain works, right? It's all just human behavior, essentially. So in Atomic Habits, there's 4 rules of habit change, which is basically 4 rules of human behavior, which is also four rules of sales and marketing, which is make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So that's make it easy, make it obvious. Don't leave any room for question marks, right? Make it obvious is fill in all the blanks, make it so clear you know exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it. You have no question, no stress about it. And I mean, this applies to literally everything. And this applies to money, right? It's like, make it obvious. Why do you want the money? You like, make it obvious why you want the money. Exactly this much money is going towards this. Exactly this much money is going towards this. If you just say, I want $1 million because it sounds like a good number and then I'll have enough for everything. You will be surprised, actually, if then you try to break down what would I actually do with the money. You start to have all these questions. Oh, well, like, actually, I don't know if I would want to do this, or like, how much would I actually invest? Or I don't even know how to invest. Or, oh, then what if I don't want to actually have this much because then people are going to want me to like lend them money. Then you'll realize, oh, actually, now I see why I don't have $1 million yet, right? And in sales too, make it obvious. Make it obvious why they should want to join your program. Make sure they know exactly what your focus is, exactly what the outcome of the program is, exactly what problems your program solves, right? Like it's all the same thing. So with your actions, with your habits that you're building, make it obvious. Why should I do this? It's also kind of make it easy. And make it obvious is also like literally your environment, like visibly what you see, like make it obvious. So again, if it's like I'm going to work out, maybe it's like I set my workout clothes out the night before, right? So, and that's also part of make it easy. There's overlap, okay? But it's like, so I see my workout clothes first in the morning. Or, oh, like one time I told my friend she had a goal of more gratitude. And so we combined all these things, obviously, but we were like, okay, put an index card at your place on the table where you eat that says like gratitude, right? So it's like when you sit down, you see the index card and then you're like, oh yeah, say my gratitude or write my gratitude or whatever it is. And then you're also kind of habit stacking it with like your meals. That was the way that we combined these, but there's an example of a visual cue if we put that right there so that you would make it obvious to do the habit. Maybe you want to stretch more, do more yoga, right? And so you like leave your mat out so that you see the mat and then you're like, oh yeah, stretch, right? Leaving your guitar. I think this was in the book, but I do it. My guitar is right behind me in a video right now. There's a reason why my guitar is right here next to my desk and not in another room or in a closet because it's a visible cue to me. Every time I see my guitar, I'm like, oh yeah, I should play my guitar. So make it obvious, visible cues, and also your environment, any cues in your environment. Again, things that you leave out, things you see, or just the way that you set up your environment. This is, again, kind of a combo with or kind of overlaps with make it easy, but make your environment set up ideally for the habit as well, right? So like maybe you want to start a YouTube channel and film more YouTube videos, or maybe you want to start a podcast, right? We'll use this example. Like don't have your mic like hidden away or put away, like have the whole setup ready to go so it doesn't feel like a whole to-do to record a podcast episode. Have a light. If you have a light, have it all set up, make it obvious. And then make it easy, since we're already kind of overlapping, is basically breaking it down, make it as easy as possible for what you're going to do. I already talked about this, right? That's kind of again, they're very similar. Eliminating all the questions and making it as easy as possible for you to actually do, right? If I want to record a podcast, okay, how am I recording it? What software am I using? Answer all those unanswered questions. I think maybe I said it like backwards. Like I said that eliminating the question marks was make it obvious, but it's really kind of make it easy. But I don't know. It's both. Whatever. You get what I'm saying. Selling every day. How can I make that easy? Like, how am I going to sell every day? Like, why doesn't it feel easy? I just did a whole program on this, helping entrepreneurs make selling feel easier, but break it down, get specific, and make sure that it's doable. And a part of this is also, like I already talked about, of like breaking down these actions to make them even more specific, not just having a a broad habit goal, but like actually breaking it down into what is the daily action I am taking. Another thing I like to do, I talked about this in the Higher Self Habits workshop last year, but I literally have a daily habit tracker. This is kind of going into make it satisfying, which is immediately reward yourself for completing the habit, right? How am I going to make this habit satisfying? Some habits are inherently satisfying, that's fine. But for most of my most important daily habits, I have a daily habit tracker. I really recommend having something physical with stickers or something where you can X off. So when you do it, you can mark it and you know you rewarded yourself. And it also holds you accountable. It's kind of also make it obvious because then every time you look at the tracker, you're like, I didn't do that. I have to do that because I can't X it off if I don't do it. And I don't want to go to bed without Xing it off. Like that kind of stuff really helps. It's so classic, but it's for a reason. Could also be, are you just going to reward yourself in some way? I get to take a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, or I'm going to go on a walk after I finish this, or whatever it is. You can reward yourself with all different things. I know people use different things for rewarding. Another element of making it satisfying, I think, is making sure that it feels aligned, right? And making sure that what you are getting out of it. And then make it attractive is associate your new habit with something you enjoy, or just make it like actually sound appealing, right? Don't just try to force yourself into doing something that doesn't actually sound exciting to you. How could I make it exciting? So say you want to write more, or like maybe you want to start a blog and it's like, I really want to start this blog. And so I'm going to write every day. Maybe you make a habit to like write at least 10 minutes a day. And you're like, I'm going to write first thing when I get up, I'm going to do like 10 minutes of writing, right? Checking all the boxes. And then make it attractive could be like, how can I make it more attractive to do? So maybe I make a cozy drink. You guys know I love my cozy drinks, right? I'm going to make my favorite cozy drink and sit down. I'm going to light a candle. I'm going to make it all vibey. Throw back to romanticizing everything. That is really how you make things attractive, is you romanticize it, right? How can I combine it with things I already like? Maybe I'm going to go to a cozy coffee shop. I talk about that all the time. Those are ways where you can associate the new thing with things you already really like doing. And it also is going to help motivate you to do it, because now I get to do all these other things. If you want to walk, like maybe I'm going to listen to my favorite podcast when I walk. And it's like, I can only listen to the Thriving podcast if I am on a walk. And if you had a goal to go on a walk, to walk more. And then it's like, man, I really want to listen to the new episode of Thriving, but I can't unless I walk. And that will help motivate you to go on the walk because you really want to listen to my podcast. Listen to music, whatever it is. So stuff like that, make it attractive. So that's the final step after we've gone through this whole defining and filtering process, is we actually break it down to the daily actions, the weekly actions. We determine what kind of basis am I doing this on, right? We want to be consistent, so be realistic too. If I say daily, is that going to be realistic for me? Maybe I start with once a week, and once I have that in solid once a week, then I do twice a week or 3 times a week, then I do daily, or whatever it is. Like what's going to be realistic, and also know yourself with this. Sometimes I know like people are like, if I do once a week, then it's going to be too infrequent. I'm not going to stick with it. So know yourself, and also don't be afraid to be flexible, right? Be adaptable. Even I say all this all the time with my intuitive scheduling process. A big part of that is just observing, okay, like we set the plan, we try it for a couple weeks, and then we reevaluate. Okay, what's working, what's not working. And you may notice, this worked really well. This I noticed wasn't working. Why wasn't it working? Because that wasn't really motivating enough for me. And so what do I need to add to make it more motivating? I did this, but I realized I'm not actually seeing it. And so then I just kind of skip by, right? And it's like, how can I put something else in place to make it more likely to do it? Or it's like, I realized actually that wasn't what I wanted, and really it was more this. So reevaluate and check in consistently to be like, okay, what's working, what's not? And maybe it's like, I noticed this one really is working well, and how can I learn from that one to change the way I implement this habit so that it's actually more effective, right? So reevaluate all the time, be flexible with it, and just like know yourself and check in with yourself, and then be specific. And it's like, you can't lose when you really break it down this way. And it's the coolest thing is, it's like, we had these big lofty goals at the beginning that seemed like, oh my God, am I ever going to reach that? Just sounds like pie in the sky. It sounds so far away. And then when you do this process of really bringing it all the way in and breaking it down, it feels freeing, because now I know all I have to focus on is literally just taking these daily actions. Like now it's right in front of me, and I know this is all that is my responsibility. And I know that if I just focus on my responsibility on these daily actions or weekly actions, monthly things, whatever it is, that's another thing I will say in a second, then I know I will reach these goals. And how freeing is that? Then you can let go of the rush to the results because it's like, I literally am doing everything that I can be doing. And if you're not, it's like, okay, the check-in of like, why am I not taking the actions? Is it different actions? What's going on? And just reevaluate the process. The last thing I wanted to say is like, if you did have, maybe it was like a goal of doing 2 collaborations monthly. Again, you want to make sure you're specific with how am I going to implement that? Because if it's just 2 collaborations monthly, before you know it, it's January 30th. You haven't planned the collaborations, you're scrambling, you fall off, you don't do it, right? So it's like, I am going to plan at the beginning of the month. I'm going to sit down, again, specific. Keep challenging yourself. Can I be more specific? Can I be more specific until you really can't anymore? In Atomic Habits, you'll see he literally says, like, say, like, I am going to, like, right after I close my laptop for lunch, before I eat lunch, I am going to do 5 push-ups next to my desk. Like, he gets so specific. It's not like before lunch, I'm going to do push-ups, right? It's like, I'm going to, right after I close my laptop, I'm doing them right next to my desk. I know exactly where. And I'm, like, he breaks it down. Even when you think you can't get more specific, can you get more specific? But it's like, all right, on the first of the month, when I do my weekly business planning or whatever, I am going to determine the 2 people that I want to collaborate with, and I'm going to reach out and send a message for the collaboration. I'm handling on the first, I'm deciding who it is, get clear on what kind of collab you want to do, who you want to collab with, whatever it is, and get clear on when you're going to make the reach out. Really define things. Again, I can't stress it enough. Just make things as easy as possible for your brain, for your dumb little human brain. No, we love you, brain. Okay, you're not dumb, but think like you're trying to baby your brain. Okay, make it easy for it to do the things you want it to do. Okay. So yeah, that's basically the process. This episode was so long. I knew it was going to be a meaty one. I knew it was going to be a big one, but I feel like, yeah, it just could not be. This is a thorough process. Also, I did ramble for like 20 minutes in the beginning. Whatever, it's a good one. I hope that you love this episode. If you have any questions, then please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram and ask me any questions you have. I would love to talk about it. Even if you go through this process, if you want like my feedback on anything, let me know. I would also just love to hear your goals for the new year. I'm so excited to hear. Also, I just realized I gave all business and health and wellness examples, and I didn't give any personal play or relationship examples. I guess I kind of talked about what they were in the beginning, but just for a quick example, personal play stuff would be like, I want to learn a new instrument, or I want to have more fun, or I want to learn this hobby, or I want to, dress better, or I want to travel more, stuff like that. Again, that's like the broadest version of like things, but just to give you a kind of idea of what kind of stuff would go in that category. This could also be anything about your space or your home, your living situation, your personal enjoyment, your relationship with yourself. And then relationships, again, would be like maybe something related to your social life, boundaries with relationships, communication, stuff like that. So I just realized I'm looking at my like the little 2-thing note that I did, and I was like, wait, I didn't talk about, like, all my examples were in the other 2 categories, and I like totally forgot about those 2. And those are very important. Don't sleep on those categories, especially the personal and play. Make sure you have goals in there related to like your play and your personal life, especially because for us very goal-oriented people, we want to make sure that we are not just focused on quote unquote improvement. Like we are focused on overall enjoyment of life, which obviously it all plays into it. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. If you do this, let me know. Can't wait to hear how it goes for you. And feel free to please share this episode out with anybody that would appreciate it. Anyone who you've talked to about setting New Year goals or has expressed confusion or stress or overwhelm about setting New Year goals, or a friend that you want to do this with, or to your partner so you can do it together. And yeah, I'm really excited. I hope it's helpful for you. This is my process. I love to do it. Sindri and I are going to go through this weekend. I'm really excited. And it's just a super fun way to get excited for the new year. And even with this process, make it vibey, romanticize it, right? Make a thing out of it. And you could feel free to do a vision board up with it. I don't really do the vision boards. I don't know. It's just never really done anything for me. Maybe I haven't just fully committed myself to it enough, but this really works well for me. So do it up however it feels fun and vibey and aligned to you. In whatever way feels the most expansive. I am wishing you the happiest new year and all of the magic in 2025. I am so happy for everything that we have to come in the new year. And thank you so much for being here and being along for the journey and along for the ride. Hope you had a happy, and I also hope you had an amazing holiday. I am excited to get back into the swing of things with the new year as well. The holiday month has been so fun, but it's been a lot. And I am really excited to, just get back into the swing of things, hit the ground running with the business, and really get started with all my awesome new goals too. So love you so much. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are. Don't forget to stop, take a deep breath, and smile. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.